Why was the Sith Temple on Malachor V indirectly responsible for the corruption of Revan and the creation of Darth Revan? How did it play a major part in the creation of some of the most vile Sith Lords that we have ever seen in galactic history? Greetings again, students of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. Sith temples have a reputation of being among the most dangerous places in all of the galaxy. They are no mere buildings, but rather vessels of the dark side, extensions of their Sith's creators, their will made manifest, which turns the temples into malevolent entities bent on corruption and obtaining power at any cost, as well as cultivating and withholding that power from those not worthy. Their mere presence can violate an entire planet's ecosystem, and many of them are responsible for the creation of future Dark Lords. Sith temples have served as some of the greatest teachers for those seeking power, release, and dominion over those they deem less worthy. This is the case for the Sith Temple that we will be discussing today. Rather, Academy would be a more apt word. The Traya Academy. The Traya Academy resided on the infamous world of Malachor V, and according to our research, the temple was not only used as a base by Revan and Traya, but it is also responsible for their free fall into darkness and insanity. Join us today as we open a Sith holocron and discuss how the Traya Academy may be one of the most vile Sith temples in all of the lore. Oftentimes we can get a gauge on the power and purpose of these temples by looking at who originally made them, their architects. This allows us to gauge the power and purpose of the temple, but there is a troubling aspect regarding the lore of the Traya Academy. We do not know who made it, or what it was designed for. According to the Sith Darth Scion, it was built well over a millennia prior to 3951 BBY, the date of our story. This would place it around the time of the death of Marka Ragnos, and the beginning of the Great Hyperspace War. This means that the Traya Academy was constructed during the days of the old Sith Empire, but it's completely unknown whether it was built during the reign of Ajunta Pal and the First Dark Jedi, or under the ancient King Adis. But either way, at some point, the temple was abandoned and forgotten by the ancient Sith. The temple oozed energy so evil that the Mandalorians who found it refused to ever step foot on Malachor V based on the culture alone. Non-Force sensitive Mandalorians could feel the power emanating from the temple. And this is what got the attention of Revan, who at this point in our story was a Jedi Knight. During the Mandalorian conflict, Revan had been searching the Outer Rim worlds for potential locations for a base. With the war raging on, Revan needed somewhere closer to the front lines so that he could keep an eye on his enemy. But the location also had to be secure enough so that the Jedi would not be discovered. Revan would end up hearing rumors of Malachor V, a planet taboo and feared by the Mandalorians. So of course, this caught the interest of Revan. Traveling to the world, the Jedi stumbled across the Traya Academy. Within this temple, Revan would make two dramatic discoveries that would change him forever. First, the location of the ancient Sith homeworld of Korriban, which had been completely lost following the war with Exar Kun. And the second discovery, and the more important, evidence that the Sith Empire continued to exist in the unknown regions away from the vision of the known galaxy. It would be in the Traya Academy that Revan would discover the reconstituted Sith Empire under the rulership of an individual known as Darth Vitiate. As monumental as these discoveries were, Revan unfortunately didn't immediately alert the Jedi High Council. Instead, he had already begun to get corrupted by the planet. Revan's mind was warped, and he decided to keep the information secret. Revan decided to construct a stronghold on Malachor V, and use the temple's energies to perform actual rituals that bound all of his most trusted Jedi followers to his will. Not even Revan's greatest friend in Malak knew of this ritual. This resulted in the birth of the Sith Assassin Order, but we'll get into that in just a moment. The beginning of Revan's fall would occur here, as he began making the mass shadow generator in the secrecy of Malachor V. While this was being made, he returned to the galaxy and continued to wage his war on the Mandalorians until the fateful day where the war was concluded. Revan forced a confrontation with them on the planet of Malachor V that they had avoided for so long, with his most trusted general, Mitra Surik, leading the battle. Revan, meanwhile, was dueling Mandalore the Ultimate elsewhere, but he told Mitra to activate the shadow generator when the moment was right. And during the battle, that is exactly what the Jedi did. This resulted in the cataclysmic event which devastated the Republic and the Mandalorian fleets with one fell swoop, as well as destroyed large parts of the planet itself. and as we know, resulted in the creation of the Sith Lord Darth Nihilus somewhere on the surface. But because of the strong malevolent powers, the Traya Academy would actually survive the mass shadow generator's attack, fortified by the darkness. Revan and Malak would then venture to the unknown regions on a secret crusade to discover the Sith Empire and any threat that it posed. And of course, their minds would eventually become fully corrupted by Vitiate, who ordered them to return as scouts to the Republic. They were also ordered to find the ancient station known as the Starforge, so that Vitiate could amass an army and an invasion force extremely quickly. But once the two returned to known space as Sith Lords, Revan and Malak broke from Vitiate's control, yet they were still under the influence and seduction of the dark side. The two Sith decided to begin their own empire and found the Starforge for themselves, entering the reign of Revan's new empire. During this vile civil war of the Jedi, Revan would make another pilgrimage to the Traya Academy, bent on utilizing its power to win a second war. Revan took his captured Jedi brethren and brought them all to Malachor V, where he then imprisoned them in the temple. The terrible dark side energies would weaken the Jedi's resolve and their willpower, afflicting them with constant mental torture through the Force until they would eventually mentally break. While this happened, Revan coerced them to join him through enticement and the offer of power and freedom. Not just release from this torture, but release from the restraints of the Jedi Code. This is how Revan constructed his Dark Jedi followers, and the Sith Assassin Order was truly born. Throughout the war, Revan would utilize the Academy as one of several secret Sith bases until his memory was wiped and he returned to the Jedi. What is interesting in the lore though, is it is never confirmed whether or not Darth Malak knew of the temple or not, but according to what we actually know, he didn't. Revan as the Sith Master kept many secrets from his reckless apprentice, and the Traya Academy was one of them. The location of this place would be mostly lost to time, but it was said that the Jedi who felt the initial disturbance in the Force would never forget the Cataclysm or the temple's location, although they would not speak it openly. A year after the defeat of Malak's empire, the redeemed Revan would vanish into the unknown regions, desperate to destroy the Emperor and right his wrongs. From this quest, Revan would never return, but one Jedi did attempt to follow him, his master, Traya. Traya feared that it was her teachings that had driven him back to the dark side, so when she found out that he was going back to the unknown regions, she attempted to follow him and stop her former apprentice. Along her journey though, she would eventually reach the world of Malachor V, feeling a strong pull there. Simply walking on the surface of the ruined planet, Traya was overcome with pain, agony, and darkness. She sensed the cataclysm of the Sith Temple, which loomed deep ahead in the world. Unfortunately though, the Traya Academy would claim one more Jedi, as Traya would fall to the dark side and become known as Darth Traya. Traya would make the Traya Academy her home, studying its many dark secrets. But while there, she discovered something else: the remainder of the Sith Assassins from Revan's empire. Traya rose up to command them as her own and make them servants. And this is where Darth Traya created a devious plan to destroy the Force itself. To do this, Traya found two good candidates to be her apprentices, the Sith Lords Darth Nihilus, from whom she found wandering the surface of Malachor, desperately seeking out his next meal, to feed upon someone's very Force energy, their life force, and the other was a Sith by the name of Darth Sion, the Lord of Pain, whose body was being held together by his own agony and hatred. A dark shadow fell across the galaxy, as for the next decade, the three of them formed the Sith Triumvirate, and together they destroyed large swaths of the Jedi Order. This event would become known as the First Jedi Purge. Nihilus and Sion would hunt many Jedi and destroy as much of them as possible, with Nihilus's ability to absorb living Force energy causing mass death of Jedi across the stars. But it was Traya's Sith Assassins which essentially acted as inquisitors of this era. They went out deep into the galaxy picking off remaining Jedi until there were barely more than 100 left. If you would like a full video detailing the First Jedi Purge, please leave a like and request it below, and we will be sure to document the entire thing. As soon as the Sith Triumvirate had officially taken over the galaxy and instated their own rule, the Sith would grow wary of their lecture-prone Darth Traya, their master. Deciding to betray her, the two Sith Lords combined forces and stripped Traya of all of her abilities to touch the Force, casting her out of the Sith. The two would more or less leave behind the Traya Academy and would live aboard Nihilus's haunted ship known as the Ravager. As the story plays out, Traya would end up discovering Mitra Surik, who happened to be the only Jedi that was not corrupted by Malachor. This would be when she returned under Revan's command. She would eventually be exiled from the Jedi and the galaxy because of her actions during the Mandalorian War. Not to mention, Mitra was also distraught by the disturbance of the Force that the mass shadow generator caused, resulting in her refusing to use the Force and cutting herself off. Traya, though, saw her as an excellent candidate to destroy the Force and get revenge on the Sith. Her plan was to get Mitra back into wielding the Force, and after which, led her into a final confrontation on Malachor V. Mitra would go on to destroy Darth Nihilus and would find her way back to the planet of her greatest misery. There, she would defeat and redeem Darth Sion before finally facing Traya in one final conflict. During the duel, Mitra Surik realized just how much terror had been brought on the galaxy by the Traya Academy and the evil of Malachor V. Resolving to end the planet once and for all, Mitra would activate the mass shadow generator one more time, this time though, in an effort to destroy what she had created there. In this event, not even the dark energies of the Academy would save it, as Malachor V could not handle a second activation of this weapon, and was wiped off of the face of the galaxy forever, taking with it the abhorrent and vile Traya Academy, potentially the most evil Sith Temple that has ever existed in the lore, responsible for beginning Revan's path to the dark side, one responsible for the creation of Darth Traya, a location which contributed to the birth of Nihilus, and several extremely dangerous sects of the Sith Empire. We at the archives of the Stupendous Wave find Sith temples to be incredibly fascinating, and we believe that they are an extremely underrated aspect of the lore. Temples and holocrons can be just as dangerous as Sith Lords in the right circumstances, and Malachor V was truly the greatest villain of this era in the lore, a place of death and dominion. At the heart of some of the greatest stories told in Star Wars legends, we can usually find a Sith temple or artifact egging it on. And in this instance, the Traya Academy was partially responsible for several of the greatest and most powerful Sith Lords in galactic history. But anyway, my friends and students of the Force, what do you think of this? What do you think of the Traya Academy, Malachor V, and the nature of the most evil Sith temple? Would you want to see Sith temples get more spotlight in future canon projects? And let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is there a Sith temple worse than the Traya Academy? Is there a planet more vile and disturbed than Malachor V? As always, thank you so much for visiting the archives and your constant support. It truly is everything to us here at the archives. And as always, my friends, have an absolutely phenomenal day, and may the Force be with you.